We found that Michael Allison gave us a lot of time, and he got into great detail, which gave us a lot of encouragement. He got out big maps of the Maze prison, and we all got down on our knees, and we spent several hours talking about the possibilities of different arrangements for association and what doors could be open when and what might happen. And there came a point where the obvious need was for us to meet the prisoners, to get inside the prison, to see the layout of the prison and to meet the prisoners.
After their meetings with Michael Allison, the Commission believed they had established the basis for an agreement and went to the Maze to urge the prisoners to accept their proposals and call off the hunger strike.
They came, they visited me, they put a complete case scenario to me about how they could resolve the issue.
These people were coming in and telling us, look, we have talked to these British officials. They have told us that all you have to do is do this, end the hunger strike, and we will ensure that you get A, B, C and D.
They were saying that they had the substance of the 5 demands and that they were convinced that the British would yield to it.
And we were saying, but, you know, where is the proof? You know, where is the documents that they have given you? Where is this written down?
Where the prisoners had to be absolutely certain that if they ended that hunger strike, they could see in black and white on a piece of paper what it was they were in it for.
They needed some proof that this was real, that it wasn't just something that was being said to us to keep things moving along.
It was a simple matter of communication. Then the British government could communicate with the prisoners either through Gerry Adams or someone that the prisoners trusted, or else directly with the prisoners themselves. It wasn't rocket science, it was simple.
The Commission left the prison in the early hours of the 4th of July. Later that day, the prisoners released what appeared to be a conciliatory statement, giving fresh hope that the crisis would soon be brought to an end.
As I understood the ICJP proposals, they seemed to offer a way through. And then that was followed by the conciliatory statement by the prisoners, saying they were not looking for special privileges, and the British could solve the problem without any sacrifice of principle. Well, that was a very different approach from that of the IRA. And the fact that prisoners seem to have escaped from the control of the IRA organisation temporarily and to be taking control of the situation themselves, that did seem encouraging. We thought it looked as if this problem could be solved.
The pressure began to increase, and attention focused on whether the deal brokered by the Commission would be guaranteed by the British government. But away from the media spotlight, the Commission's efforts to find a breakthrough were about to take an unexpected turn.
We got a call to say that Gerry Adams would like to meet us. The information that we got was that a man with a blue car would be down outside the bar at the lower level, and that if some of us could slip out of the hotel and get into the blue car, it would be taken to a safe house where Gerry Adams would meet us. What they told us, I suppose we were again very naive, but what they told us shocked us and shocked the rest of the Commission members when we met them again.
What the Commission was about to discover was that through a top-secret channel of communications codenamed Mountain Climber, other negotiations were already taking place. Negotiations between Downing Street and the Republican leadership, and through which the British government had offered a deal.
There had been a contact which the British had activated. It became known as the Mountain Climber, and basically I didn't learn this until afterwards. Basically this came out of a group of people in Derry.
The British had strange ways of doing things. They were publicly talking to a number of groups during the period of the hunger strike. But when big decisions came, or big offers had to be made, or big fish had to be fished, it always went through the mountain climber or link, all that type of situation. There was a phone call on a particular night, direct to Maggie Thatcher as she was on her way to a conference in Portugal. The agreement was, or what she was offering that night, was basically what the hunger strikers ultimately settled for. Some disputes around that, and I wasn't there, so I can't be authoritative around that, and I can't say which is right. But the story I heard at the time was that she made an offer, and the person who was on the phone involved in this linkage said to the person from the Republican movement, "I think you have to take this offer. You should take this offer." And I think the answer was no, it has to be the prisoners who have to make up it. And it didn't happen, and it went on, and a good few other people. I think at that stage, if my memory is right, about 3 people were dead on the hunger strike at that time. About 3. And it went on to become obviously more.
By this stage, the concern for some people was not only that the hunger strike looked set to continue, but that negotiations had been taking place between the British government and the Republican movement.
It was always assumed that both governments would take the same line in relation to the IRA. Otherwise, how could we possibly succeed? And the assumption was, from the beginning of the Troubles, that the Irish government would have no contact with the IRA and the British government would have no contact with the IRA. So in fact it was quite a treacherous move on the part of British governments. On the one hand, they were pressing us to deal rigidly and firmly with the IRA, in particular in relation to security matters. And on the other hand, they were offering them tea and biscuits.
I have no knowledge of it. I have no knowledge of whether the Prime Minister authorised it or not. But I think in these circumstances I would have been very surprised if there weren't contacts of one kind or another.
I had a particular problem because when I knew what had happened, if I, in talking to Margaret Thatcher, referred to it and said, yes, your people have been in touch with the IRA, and she denied it, which she might feel necessary to do, well then obviously our whole relationship became changed utterly. So it seemed to me that it was too much of a risk to tell her that I knew what was happening. And to that extent, of course, my attempts to persuade her to change were, well, I had one hand behind my back. That was a very difficult situation, difficult to judge how to handle it.
Among those most disturbed by the emergence of the secret talks were the delegates from the Irish Commission for Justice and Peace. They realised that their own attempts to establish a deal between the prisoners and the British government had been in vain.
I have not said that the British government lied.
But you are implying they went back on their word.
I'm saying that they assert that Mr. Allison acted in good faith, and that all day yesterday there was a clawing back on the part of the British government.
Margaret Thatcher made it impossible for me ever totally to believe anything the British government would ever say. There was a ruthlessness in this situation, and it was there on both the side of the IRA and on the side of the British government. And both the IRA and the British government were assessing Joe McDonnell's survival. If there was a brinkmanship going on between Margaret Thatcher and the IRA at that point, it was a brinkmanship that went too far.